Congratulations, you all made it to the last presentation of the summit. And thank you for doing so, because, well, it's nice to have some people in front of you. We would like to tell you something, here it comes, about two parts of the LFE family that are not about solutions, but about business, the business of grid operators. It's about business where the benefits are of all those beautiful solutions we talked about a lot the last 2 days, where the value is, where the value will be collected of all those beautiful solutions. And for that, we have two parts of our LFE family, what are reference architectures, which you can use to communicate with the business. And that's what we want to tell you a little bit about. And I am Ton van de Knaap. I am a DSO, STEDIN I work with, and I am an enterprise architect within STEDIN. And I'm presenting together with Prince.
Thank you, Ton. Hello, everybody. I'm Prince Singh. I'm working as a business architect in Alliander. I think you all have got to know and seen different presentations from Alliander. I have nothing more to add with this presentation. As Ton rightly mentioned, we will talk more about reference architecture and how we link it to the business.
Okay, what I want to do with you is, well, tell a little bit about what a reference architecture is and what the benefits are, what kind of use cases you can use this reference architecture with, and where the benefits lies. Last year, we introduced Nbility as a reference architecture and announced this as an open source product. So I want to tell you what we have done last year. The same will Prince tell you about the functional architecture as part of the LFE family. And we will end with a use case, an example where projects that you are in can benefit from these reference architecture to make the connection to the business. So a reference architecture, a beautiful co-pilot definition, so don't read it. But it's there are a lot of examples, and examples that are industry specific, that are generic, and we created two reference architecture that are specific for the grid operator business. And having a reference architecture makes it possible to use it in different use cases with different kind of benefits. The most important benefit is creating a common language, a language in which you can talk with business people, with the stakeholders that has to fund all those projects, where the value should be there and where the benefit lies of the solutions you make. And that common language make it easier to communicate, and with that it will cause faster implementations of innovating projects. Another benefit I would like to tell is you can use the reference architecture to explain where in the landscape your solution is. And that makes it easier for the business to look the other way around. What kind of solutions are there for my piece of business? And then you have a connection. And that's where reference architectures has a real benefit for. Another example is you can manage your change portfolio. You can tell, okay, this project is in this area of the business, and because that area of the business is strategically important, your project is important. So you can connect via the reference architecture your solutions, your projects to the strategy of the business. And that helps communicating about it. The last part, I want to tell is you can use it to make design choices. You can use it to say, okay, if the business is being created in a reference architecture and have different parts, my solution should also have different parts to be flexible, to make a composable organization there. So you can use the reference architecture to make design decisions about the scope of projects, about the scope of APIs, or about the scope of the project you are doing. Okay, these are little advantages of benefits from having a reference architecture. And on this slide is the ability model. The ability model that consists of 3 parts. The capabilities of a grid operator. What do you have to be good at to be successful as a grid operator? The green part, serving customers. The blue part, system operator. The red part, managing the assets. The purple part, getting the data from your grid. The yellow part, the engineering of the assets. And the brown part, facilitating the market. The second part is the value streams. The value streams in which capabilities work together to create value for our customers. And at the end, they pay for everything we do. So it's important to be clear where the value is going to be. The last part are the business objects. As a grid operator, we manage a lot of real-world objects and we collect a lot of data about them to be able to manage them. Well, this business object reference architecture part standardizes the objects we manage, and with that the parts we collect data on. Last year it has been announced, and there have been some adjustments last year because more and more the model is used to create processes, to develop data products, and to make beautiful projects. Left upper corner, you see some improvements. From a model perspective, the new thing is that the relationship between value streams and capabilities has been worked out a little bit more in detail. So we make specific what are the key capabilities of a value stream and what are the supporting capabilities on this value stream. Yep. That's the developments behind Nbility. In here you see the meta model behind Nbility. It's the upper part is part of it, and the purple part is the meta model of the functional model. That's also part of the LFE family. And Prince will tell you something about that.
Thank you, Ton. Before I move on to the next slide, I will repeat shortly what Ton said, and then I will link the next part of the presentation to that. So, as already mentioned, to talk to the business, to move on the contribution at the strategic level, the capabilities are required, the value streams are required, but also it's very intuitive to think that the project architecture is also required. So we have to make a model or architect our projects also, so that we can link it to the business and strategy. So with that thought, we started a while ago with the functional architecture. We developed a meta model for that. The meta model mapping on the meta model of Nbility you can also see here. We started with a handful of elements to help model different LFE projects and projects in general, their project architectures. So that was the starting thought which we had. In the next slide, I will give you a very small overview of one of the section of one of the part of the functional architecture model, and then I will explain a little bit the broader view. Thank you. Let's do the need. Yes. So as I mentioned, one of the subset of one of the scope or one of the part of the functional architecture model which we created is this what you see. Now the question will be asked, okay, from what perspective, for with what intention, with what scope you guys built it. So the generic scope is the generic scope here is the services or the functions which are to be offered or which are in the domain of a DSO or a generic TSO. And in the next slide, you can see the broader, the whole functional architecture model which we created. Now, the underlying motivation naturally is that different project architectures on basis of the meta model, which I showed on the previous slide, are able to plot their contributions or their functions on a map like this, or on an aggregation of business functions on this, thereby helping to see their contribution, the business functions they deliver, and linking it to what Ton just said, see directly their business contributions and link it to the strategic level. Please. Yeah, so I will cover a little bit here. Well, I hope this is a known reference model for you, the SGAM. I will link it a little bit to the LF Energy functional architecture model, which I just explained. And if the Nbility part comes, I think Ton can also elaborate on it. So here we see the different layers, and the question very valid question can be asked. So how do you plot the different functions and the business services which you showed to us on a model like this? So if you look at the functional level, that's where the mapping is of the functional architecture model which I just showed. And if you look at the business level, that's more linked to what Ton was talking about, the capabilities, the value streams, and mostly at the top business level. So here you can, in terms of hierarchy, you can see at what interoperability levels we are talking about, and we are trying to model the different layers. Now, I will focus on about the benefits which we intend with the functional architecture model of LF Energy. So a couple of them have already been mentioned and addressed in different presentations also. I will zoom in on two of them. So you see in the bottom layer interoperability and modularity. One point which came many times during presentations was the modularity. So if I have a module required, if there is a functionality required, how can I reuse it? Are there different overlaps between different projects which I can reuse to in a modular way, create my application and offer the different services? So with the help of the project architectures, which in itself uses the functional architecture, the modularity could be improved between different projects, and reuse will be facilitated. Now, interoperability is again a recurring theme in that aspect, so it becomes easier for projects to see what are the underlying commonalities and which services or which aspects could be exploited or reused. Now, also good to have a use case. So when we were making this presentation together with Ton, we thought of it will be very good to make a concrete use case and give you all also an example what actually we are talking about and how does it link strategically to the business needs and discussions with the business to get the business buy-in. This is a generic example of the project architecture which we made with our colleagues from Alliander, Power Grid Model. There was also a good presentation about it. So I assume that some of the aspects are recognizable here for you. So what we did here is that we tried to create the project architecture based on the functional architecture and linked it to what are the relevant capabilities on basis of the Nbility capability model, which was just explained to you minutes earlier. So what we did is we tried to see, we have a functionality here, and we have relevant capabilities. Where does it map to in the whole business landscape and the work which a generic DSO is doing? So we could zoom in from the capability stack which we had from Nbility capability stack to these two capabilities. Now, well, we wanted to move it further. We wanted to make a link to strategy level more. Then we tried mapping it to the value chains. And these value chains, which you see on my left, they are also from the Nbility capability stack. And these, after we were able to map the project architecture to the capabilities, we could move one step more ahead or higher in terms of strategic level to move it to the value chains. So, and that triangle which you see at the corner, it's symbolic because I really wanted to stress upon the fact that what is the underlying theme here. So what are we trying to convey with this reference architecture models and the mapping? So the underlying theme is obviously going higher in abstraction level, that's said and that's understood quite easily. But we are also trying to link the work which is we are doing in different projects, cascading it up above to more abstraction and more strategic and business level. And making the circle round again, this comes to a lot of themes which were discussed many times in the presentations during the whole conference, getting the business buy-in, getting the more support from the business, getting more collaboration. So it's a recurring theme and also in our presentation, and that's the link which we together wanted to make with the reference architecture and the functional architecture model. Well, would you like to add something to the abstraction layer?
Yeah, well, you can find all the documentation on GitHub, and we have a help question for you. So if we together link all the projects to the reference architecture and use the reference architecture to communicate with the business, it becomes easier to talk about our work. It becomes easier to depict the benefits of our work and to agree the value of our work. And I think it would be good for everybody. So thank you for listening, and if you have questions, please ask. Yep.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. And as a data architect, I'm very happy with this work that's being done. How would you, because you showed how you can plot something like PGM in a broader context. If we were to sort of make this part of the standard way of working for the LF Energy community, what would that look like?
Well, if you start a project, you have an idea about what business do you want to support. And if we all use the same language to define that business, it becomes easier to scale it to the whole grid operator business. And the same is for business objects, the data part, the value, capabilities, functional architecture. If we all are going to use it, we can scale it, and we can look from business down to the solutions through the same lens. And I think that would be a very nice next step for the whole community. Yeah.
If I can add to that, a lot also lies on realizing the need. So it's based also on a lot of initiatives. Of course, it can be made sort of a rule that, okay, every project has to do this and you have to come up and produce this architecture so that everybody can see and the community can benefit. Of course, we can do that. But another way is obviously if projects do recognize this, that there is added value. This kind of conversation I had with a couple of conference partners also during the days, is that if the need and if the urgency or if the vision is there that by doing this, this can be achieved, which translates in the end to financial or commercial value, I think that's where the crux is. Yeah. So.
Okay. Other question? Otherwise, we make it today. Jonas.
I think, especially for the Nbility model, I think it's already multi-language, so it's both Dutch and English. If there's an interest to add a German or French version, would that be possible?
Yes, of course. That's why we made it open source, huh? To use it broader than where it started. Volunteers, please stand up and make it even more multi-language. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I don't know if there's a formal end of the summit. Otherwise, we make it today. Have a nice trip home and see you next time.